Life of Muhammad. 24. Letter from God's messenger to the Roman Emperor Caesar. The second most famous letter is that sent to Caesar, Heraclius, the emperor of the Roman Byzantine Empire. Abu Sufyan, the leader of Quraysh, narrates he was trading in Syria for Mecca when a caller came out and said, "You are being called to Jerusalem." The Romans ruled Jerusalem then. Abu Sufyan didn't know what is going on, but lo and behold, he was being called to the presence of the emperor himself. Caesar called his delegates, an Arab translator, and then posed questions to Abu Sufyan, who then was not yet a Muslim. And Abu Sufyan was there with his tribe members as well. So Heraclius asked all the Arabs present, "Who is the closest to you to this man claiming to be a prophet?" So Abu Sufyan said, "I am." So Heraclius said, "Sit in front of me." He said to Abu Sufyan, "I will ask you questions," and he said to Abu Sufyan's tribe members behind him, "If he lies, tell me." So Abu Sufyan was forced to tell the whole truth. He knew if he lied, someone would expose him. Abu Sufyan would later say, "I promise by God, had it not been that I would be accused as a liar, I would have lied." So Heraclius asked, "What is his family's status amongst you?" Abu Sufyan replied, "He belongs to a good, noble, family amongst us." Heraclius further asked, "Has anybody amongst you ever claimed the same, meaning, to be a prophet, before him?" Abu Sufyan replied, "No." He said, "Was anybody amongst his ancestors a king?" Abu Sufyan replied, "No." Heraclius asked, "Do the nobles or the poor follow him?" Abu Sufyan replied, "It is the poor who follow him." Heraclius asked, "Are the numbers of his followers increasing or decreasing, day by day?" Abu Sufyan replied, "They are increasing." He then asked, "Does anybody amongst those who embrace his religion become displeased and renounce the religion afterwards?" Abu Sufyan replied, "No." Heraclius said, "Have you ever accused him of telling lies before his claim to be a prophet?" Abu Sufyan replied, "No." Heraclius said, "Does he break his promises?" Abu Sufyan replied, "No. We are at truce with him, but we do not know what he will do in it." And later when Abu Sufyan told this story to his tribe, he said, "I could not find an opportunity to say anything against the prophet except this." Heraclius asked, "Have you ever had a war with him?" Abu Sufyan replied, "Yes." Then he said, "What was the outcome of the battles?" Abu Sufyan replied, "Sometimes he was victorious and sometimes we." Heraclius said, "What does he order you to do?" Abu Sufyan said, "He tells us to worship Allah, God alone, and not to worship anything along with him, and to renounce all that our ancestors had said. He orders us to pray, to speak the truth, to be chaste, and to keep good relations with our relatives." Heraclius then explained all of his questions. "I asked you about his family, and your reply was that he belonged to a very noble family. In fact, all the messengers of God come from noble families amongst their respective peoples. I questioned you whether anybody else amongst you claimed such a thing, of prophethood. Your reply was in the negative. If the answer was in the affirmative, I would have thought that this man was following a trend, trying to be a prophet to be cool or famous. Then I asked you whether anyone of his ancestors was a king. Your reply was in the negative, and if it had been in the affirmative, I would have thought that this man wanted to take back his ancestral kingdom. I further asked whether he was ever accused of telling lies before he said what he said, and your reply was in the negative. So I wondered how a person who does not lie about money, gold and silver, could ever tell a lie about Allah God himself." He continues, "I then asked you whether the rich people followed him or the poor. You replied that it was the poor who followed him. And in fact, all the prophets have been followed by this very poor class of people." He continues, "Then I asked you whether his followers were increasing or decreasing. You replied that they were increasing, and in fact, this is the way of true faith, till it is complete in all respects. I further asked you whether there was anybody who, after embracing his religion, became displeased and discarded his religion. Your reply was in the negative, and in fact this is the sign of true faith when its delight enters the hearts and mixes with them completely. I asked you whether he had ever betrayed. You replied in the negative, and likewise the prophets of God never betray. Then I asked you what he ordered you to do. You replied that he ordered you to worship Allah, God alone, and not to worship anything along with him, and forbade you to worship idols, and ordered you to pray, to speak the truth, and to be chaste. If what you have said is true, he will very soon occupy this place underneath my feet, meaning Jerusalem, and I knew, from the scriptures, that the last prophet was going to appear, but I did not know that he would be from you, Arabs. If I could reach him, definitely I would go to meet him, and if I were with him, I would certainly wash his feet." Heraclius then asked for the letter of God's messenger to be passed to him. A companion of Prophet Muhammad called Dihya al-Kalbi had just delivered it. "In the name of God, the Beneficent, the Merciful. From Muhammad son of Abdullah to Heraclius the Great of the Romans. Peace be upon him, he who follows the right path. Furthermore, I invite you to submit your will to God. Submit your will to God as a Muslim and you will be safe, and God will double your reward, and if you reject, you bear the sins of the peasants and the Christians." Abu Sufyan then went back to his tribesmen and said, "The issue of Muhammad has become so prominent that even the king of the blonde-haired people, meaning Romans, is afraid of him. Then I started to become sure that he, meaning Prophet Muhammad, would be the conqueror in the near future." In fact, 5 years after the death of Prophet Muhammad, his companion Omar, who was the second caliph, had captured Jerusalem from the Roman Empire.